is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. That is brand new stuff from Dream Theater. The new album is called Distance Over Time, and the name of that song was Barstool Warrior. And here with us two Barstool Warriors right now is the keyboardist of Dream Theater, the one and only Jordan Rudess. Jordan, how are you, man?
I feel like a Barstool Warrior right now.
Well, that's it. That's kind of how we like to do it, just drinking beers and having some fun and talking some Dream Theater today, man.
All right, let's talk some Dream Theater. Cool,
man. Well, Jordan, obviously you guys are back with a new release, and it's universally being accepted by fans, which I've got to assume for you guys after the turmoil from the last record feels really good, no?
Turmoil, interesting. But anyway, yeah, it feels awesome. It's just nice, it's nice to work on something so hard and then to put it out and have everybody, enjoying it and coming back with a positive kind of attitude. So it's great.
Hey, Jordan, this is John. Good to talk to you, man.
Hey, John, what's up?
Not too much, man. So, I mean, you did mention the Astonishing. I mean, was this record kind of like a reaction to that album? I mean, it was a polarizing record. I mean, it's really the first time in your career that you guys kind of had any sort of significant backlash from at least a portion of your fan base. Was this record kind of like written as a reaction to that? Because it's very much an opposite sort of presentation.
Yeah, not really. I think of it this way. Dream Theater's had a long career, and we were at a point where we really felt like we could try something, that we wanted to do that was creatively different and enjoyable. And so we went down a path that we wanted to pursue. No, we're not blind. We're pretty aware of what's going on. We knew what we were doing. We knew that not everybody was going to love it because, it was going to be a little bit different. But we felt a desire to go down that path, and we put together a big show around it. Probably Dream Theater's biggest production ever was The Astonishing. And, it's no surprise that, like, some people came back and, we're like, I'm not into it or whatever, because not everybody's into that kind of thing. So for this album, it was important after doing The Astonishing, which was written by John Petrucci and myself, to go back to more what, the band's been about for since the onset of the career, which is about, the group kind of energy. So it's kind of just returning to form, if you will, and going more into a core kind of sound, what we've been known for. And, you can only depart like that, so much without, totally not being who you are anymore. So.
Definitely. And I know in the past, I mean, especially when, Mike Portnoy was still in the band, you guys would kind of go into the writing of a record with like a specific focus in mind. Like, Train of Thought was supposed to be this classic heavy metal album, and Octavarium was supposed to be very progressive. Did you guys do that on this one, or was it just kind of a, let's get in a room and, crank it up to 10 and see what comes out?
No, everything's very conscious with Dream Theater. We always make a plan. We always have a game plan. Sometimes we'll even have it kind of a written game plan that everybody agrees on. And that's one of the things that we're all really good at. It's one of the talents of the band beyond creating music is to kind of understand what we want / I guess feel like we need to create, setting up that goal and then really working towards it and in my opinion, often, getting there and accomplishing it. So we knew with this album, for an example, that we wanted to create songs that were a little bit more, a little shorter in general, a little more focused, more heavy, more riff-based, at the same time keeping, the prog kind of virtuosic, elements that define us. But we definitely went in there with kind of an attitude, if you will, and a plan, and just work towards that.
Jordan, when you work like that, though, and especially when you have so many different creative people in the band, and you guys do write a lot of elaborate music, how difficult is it to come up with material that everybody is on the same page with?
Well, there's no shortage of inspiration, and we're generally sitting in the room with our instruments and trying things, and people get excited. We have reactions. We'll jam around on something. If it doesn't work, it's pretty obvious. If it does, it's like, yeah, that's cool. Let's go with that. And we're also not the kind of people who second guess ourselves a lot. A lot of musicians, have trouble really even good musicians have trouble like getting anything done or producing because they can't just go with things. So we're, I guess you could say, confident enough or secure enough with our ideas that we're kind of like, we'll be able to, flow with them, go with them, and move on. So we write music once we're in the groove of it, as we were in this situation in our barn rehearsal studio. It gets done pretty quick.
Now, I mean, and that's something I wanted to ask about. I mean, you guys, I mean, obviously in other interviews it's been, talked about a lot. You guys lived together, for the making of the record. You were in a place called the Yonder Barn in upstate New York, I believe. And,
right.
I mean, you guys always write your records in the studio together, but this time, instead of, working during the day and then going home and coming back, I mean, you guys actually live together for the whole process. What sort of benefits or advantages, or what did that add to the creative process to literally just stay together like you're almost on an extended vacation together?
Well, it was really cool because the place that we were working at was this barn that was converted into a studio, actually more like a rehearsal studio, let's say. It wasn't until later that we all decided to convert it into an actual studio. That's a different story. But there was also a house in the property. So between the two, we were able to live there and, just kind of get away from everything. It was pretty far away from, the city and all of our homes. So it was a place to work undisturbed. We could hang out. We could work, all day long, which we basically did. And we had, barbecues. Everybody was showing off their various cooking skills. And, it was actually really fun. We had a lot of laughs. Going into it, I was a little bit nervous about it because, we're grown men, like kind of going away to sleepaway camp was a little bit,
sure.
It felt a little like it could be a little weird. But when we got there and we did it, first of all, we worked quickly, and not because we were trying to rush through anything, but just because it was happening. Things were just going, and we were like, wow, this is cool. We're making it happen. So it was a very good vibe. The weather actually was really nice as well, so we could just hang out outside, and we enjoyed it, and we enjoyed each other, and it was a nice way, after doing The Astonishing, which was just John and I in the studio writing all the music, just the two of us. It was a nice way to bring everybody back in and kind of reconnect and get a group energy going. And, the result of it, I think, really is cool. And one of the things that I think came out of it, which I think is something that people are responding to, is that there's an element of fun or lightheartedness on the album that people enjoy. I mean, often when you have a serious group like Dream Theater with, the very progressive metal and intense riffs and all this stuff, a little bit of humor or lightheartedness or fun goes a long way. So I think this album has that element in it, and I think that that's what people are responding to.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it does sound more organic in spots. It's really pretty cool. To that point, I mean, was there anything while you guys were writing? Were there any takes that maybe were just like a jam you guys were doing, but turned out so well that it actually just ended up in the final mix, or was everything pretty much just recorded and redone?
The first thing that comes to mind is that song S2N, Signal to Noise.
Yeah.
At the end of it is an extended keyboard lead that I just played. That was my first try when we were just laying it down just to get a rough, so we could record drums. That was my lead. So we decided at the end that was the one. That was in the spirit.
Awesome. So it's kind of like what Dark Eternal Night, the end of Dark Eternal Night, how you did that one.
Yeah. I very often play my best stuff on the first try, and then if I keep on doing it, I think about it too much.
Too much thought to it, yeah. Something about living together with the album, or to make the album. Excuse me. You guys had said that you did the 25th anniversary of Images and Words tour, and that a lot of the riffs and ideas that had kind of formulated during that time were really based around being in that headspace again. And I know that you weren't obviously with the band when they recorded that record back in '91, but they did live together while they were recording that album back at Bear Tracks. Was that something that John and James, did they ever bring that to the table? Like, well, we did that with Images and this great record came out. We're kind of in that headspace. Let's try that again. Or was it really just, because you had said that you converted this place into a studio later. So how did that come about? Was it?
Well, yeah, I mean, they've recounted that the story around the recording of Images and Words here and there. But we were enjoying being in that barn so much and hanging out but it really wasn't, equipped to be a full recording studio. But it was a very large room where we could set up all the instruments, and it had a good sound. And when we realized that there was a really cool spirit going on in the room, then we kind of all made the decision to stay there, actually, and record. Originally, we were just going to write there, and then we were going to take the whole thing somewhere else to a real recording studio. But with our techs, Maddie and Jimmy T, we all decided we would convert it into a studio. So we borrowed stuff, we bought stuff. Jimmy T, the engineer, or I should say James Meslin, the engineer, he brought some of his gear from home, and we took the whole place and turned it into a pretty rocking studio. And got some great sounds in it, and it was really comfortable and fun. And everybody at that point, after we were done with writing, took turns recording their parts.
Very cool. Now, I know, this is going back a ways, but, you had said, while you guys were making Train of Thought, that's a very heavy record, and you had said that, it was very challenging for you to find a spot in the arrangements for you to put the keyboards because it was so heavy and dark and whatnot. Did you run into any of that with this record? Because it is this might be your heaviest record since that one, pretty much. So.
Yeah. Well, I've certainly learned a lot through the years about how to, orchestrate with Dream Theater and the Petrucci, incredible wall of guitar sound. So there's always a challenge to kind of like orchestrate and, have each sound color be effective and choosing the right one. And, for one part, when we did Train of Thought, I had actually created a whole bunch of really cool sounds that kind of almost magnify or add character to the heaviness. And although it unfortunately doesn't do anything for my ego, because a lot of times you listen to it and just think, wow, that sounds heavy. I wonder what Jordan is doing. The reality is that I'm playing a sound that actually makes the whole thing even maybe a little bit cooler or a little bit bigger or gives it a character. So I have this whole bank of sounds that kind of does that for Dream Theater. So when we're playing a really heavy section, sometimes I'll leave it alone or whatever, but other times I'll join in and add one of these sounds that kind of makes it sound that much cooler.
Sure. Now, Jordan, in addition to Dream Theater, as if that's not enough for you to do, you also have a solo record that's getting ready to come out. Talk a little bit about Wired for Madness.
Cool. So Wired for Madness is my my newest album. It's coming out on April 19th on Mascot Records, and it is a huge project for me. It's a big kind of like rock, progressive, sometimes even electronic album. All the Jordan-y kind of influences are pouring through it. It was an important album for me because, I spend my whole life with music in many, many different styles, and I really feel a strong desire and inspiration to get those out. And so composing for my solo album was a chance for me to, explore all my different kind of influences, from very progressive things like Gentle Giant to Emerson, Lake and Palmer, things that wouldn't necessarily belong in like a Dream Theater kind of stylistic mix, to my classical influences, to electronic things. So very big project, very proud of it. Got a lot of great guests. And a matter of fact, James and John Petrucci have a little guest appearance on it as well. James sings a very crucial part in this long 33-minute epic, prog song that I wrote, which is the title track, Wired for Madness. And John actually plays a couple of leads in the first part of that as well. So a lot of fun for me to work with some of the other musicians that I know as well, people like Marco Miniman and Guthrie Govan, and Vinnie Moore, Rod Morgenstein, all these wonderful players I got to assemble to do this, intense album project.
Very cool. Well, I'll close up shop here with one last question. I did have a question about a particular song that hasn't really been talked about a lot in other interviews. I'm really interested to hear about Viper King, because that's very different for you guys. It's much more of an old school vibe, and of course it starts out with that awesome like dirty 70s Deep Purple-ish organ. Like, how did that song come about? Because it is it's very different for what you guys usually do.
Yeah, we just wanted to have some fun, and I did have for this album I'm using this Hammond XK5, it's called, which basically really accurately reproduces a lot of the classic kind of Hammond sounds. And so that dirty organ, if you will, got us in the spirit to get into a more kind of fun, just heavy thing. And one of the things that helped to make that song is Mike offered a riff for it that was really cool and helped to get it going. And then the rest of it just kind of really flowed, and it flowed really fast. And it was such a fun tune.
Yeah, it is. And sorry, one last quick one. I've always wanted to ask you this. You're such a fan of technology. You do all these crazy apps and stuff. And on stage, you play it's basically an iPad. And every time I see you guys, I'm like, man, I can barely get mine to play movies. Has that thing ever crashed on you in the middle of a show?
That's funny. That's really funny. The iPad. Well, all right. So I have a company called Wisdom with a Z Music, and our latest musical instrument is called GeoShred, which is the one that I use. Which I used like on the last tour. Matter of fact, I gutted my guitar and I put an iPad, actually 2 iPads in it, one for visualizations and one for GeoShred. And, really cool, really, really awesome sounding. But of course, you got to be careful not to hit like the home button in the middle of a performance, or God forbid, like your wife could call on a Skype call while you're in the middle of soloing, and you got to take the call. So aside from that, the iPad is an amazing instrument, and can be an amazing instrument. And I'm really into creating things with my company for it.
Very cool, man. Well, Jordan, obviously, man, for now, instead of creating stuff with the iPad, we're going to create stuff for the ears with Distance Over Time. It is the new release from Dream Theater. And Jordan, as a tradition on the show, we always let the artist pick a closing track from the record. Maybe tell us a quick story about it. So what would you like us to play to wrap this one up?
Well, if you guys want to play Pale Blue Dot, that's a really good one. That's probably my favorite one off the album because it's kind of a more epic adventure. That tune is just, all out Dream Theater, kind of in the spirit of a Metropolis or a Dance of Eternity. We had a great time writing it. Just got a lot of crazy twists and turns, and hope everybody enjoys it.
All right, well, let's check it out right now. It is Pale Blue Dot at Dream Theater right here on your Classic Metal Show.